deployment is stressing the American military. Is it too much for the all-volunteer force? And if so, is a draft the answer? To help me break all this down, CNN military analyst Brigadier General James Spider Marks, U.S. Army retired, and former Defense Department official Lawrence Korb, now with the Center for American Progress. Let's start with you, Lawrence. What do you think? Have we reached a breaking point because of this war?
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind that the Army is broken. The question is, how bad and how long will it take to get it back where it needs to be?
Spider?
I don't think the Army's broken. I think what is happening is there are levels within the Army that are broken, and I would say at the very top level, we just don't have enough. The short answer is there aren't enough troops in order to sustain this type of combat for an indeterminate amount of time.
How do we determine this at a time like this when such things are happening in Iraq and when even this surge of troops over there, the so-called surge, is still in progress? Listen to what General Petraeus said on Monday about the level we're at right now with that surge.
We've got about 3 of our 5 surge Army combat brigades on the ground and now into the mix, and the other 2 will be completely here and in their operational areas by mid-June. The Iraqis see that. I think that's of huge importance to the overall effort, and it's also hugely important to them.
Easy to look at things going badly this week in Iraq and say that's a measure of the military. Is that fair? Is that accurate?
Well, look, this is not the first surge. This is the 3rd surge within the last year that we've had. Each time it goes down a little bit, then it comes back up. Look, I was just in Iraq. You're not even safe in the green zone. They were shelling the green zone. The Parliament building is being blown up. What's happened is we don't have enough troops, even when General Petraeus gets it, to get all of the city of 6 million under control. They're just going to move to other areas. The Iraqi forces are not up to the job of picking up after we leave. And I think I can quote somebody that General Marks knows very, General McCaffrey, when we testified this week, he said a fool.
Well, let's listen to what General McCaffrey said. This was testifying before the Senate Armed Services Committee on Tuesday. This is what he said about the current level of recruits.
My own gut feeling is that 10% of Army recruits are of poor caliber and should not be in uniform. They're in there under waivers for non-high school graduate, moral turpitude, felony arrest, drug use. The notion that we're going to use 42-year-old first-term soldiers is simply laughable.
That's quite an indictment, Spider. Is that fair in your eyes?
Well, it's a fair statement, absolutely. I don't think General McCaffrey is making this stuff up. But again, bear in mind that the 10% or below, that average of 10% is on the margins. You look at the 90% goodness of the quality of the young men and women that are coming in. So the debate becomes, are you fielding the right force to go into combat today? The short answer is yes. Are you giving them the right kit and capabilities and training? Short answer is yes. Do you have enough of them? The answer is no, emphatically. And I agree with Dr. Korb with that.
The shorter answer is no. They're not ready. Look, we're taking people right out of basic training who missed the unit training out at Fort Irwin, sending them over with a 10-day course. That's not what you do. Army doctrine says you should have 2 years at home for every year to deploy. They're lucky if they get 1 year. They don't have the right equipment here because it's over there and it's being burned out. We did not plan to do it. So when the president says that these people are ready, marginally at best. And
is that, let me interrupt you though, is that because of Iraq, or is that because of the overall move of the Pentagon toward having a leaner, quicker moving military?
You can't isolate the two. The two are forever mixed. The issue is the size of the military is not large enough to sustain this level of combat. And
well, don't we have to be ready for that? Isn't that the point of having a military?
Of course. Of course, that's my point, is the requirements and the demands of what's going on in Iraq right now would lead you to the conclusion that this 21st century threat that we are now facing has to be addressed with a 21st century Army, and fundamentally it needs to be bigger. We have challenges across the board. Right now we are focused exclusively on Southwest Asia, counterinsurgency type operations, full spectrum ops we cannot address. And that's exactly right.
Look, people were telling this administration right after September 11th, let's expand the Army. People in Congress try to do it. We try to do it in the think tank world. And Rumsfeld had this idea that, you know, you could fight wars with 3 men and a small boy. You didn't need a lot of ground troops.
How are you going to expand the Army now?
That's the They waited too long to do it. They finally agreed to do it. It's absolutely the worst time. General Marks was talking about only 10% of the people get these waivers, but that doesn't include the other 90% where you've dropped the standards. 8,126 people.
We have not dropped the standards on the other 90%, Dr. Korb.
No. Even with dropping the standard, you still give the waivers. These are waivers over and above the fact 81% are non-high school graduate. The fact that if you're a non-high school graduate and then you also have a felony conviction, there were 900 felony convictions last year, that's the waiver. You don't have to get a waiver if you're a non-high school graduate.
I'm not going to debate those statistics, but the issue becomes, we're looking in the mirror. What are we doing today to move it forward? What we're doing today to move it forward is we're not tapping into enough of the resources that we have. We haven't talked about a draft. I would tell you that's not a requirement.
Well, how do we do this? Politically, that's dead. You may say we need it, but everybody politically says it's not going to happen.
Look,
so how do you do it without a draft?
There are affinity groups in this nation that have an affinity towards some forms of service. You go tap into those, and I don't think we're doing an effective enough job. We're not pouring the money into that.
Is that going to work?
No. The problem is that this war is so unpopular that the American people have turned against it, that normally young men and women who would go into the Army, not the other services, the Army, their mothers, their ministers, their priests, their rabbis, are discouraging from doing it, and that's your problem.
We're going to take a look at a quick graphic as we go away here. Just look at this. Out of the Americans on active military duty, 1.45 million, U.S. population 301 million. That means 1 in every 208 Americans are on active duty. There's certainly a lot more people out there who could serve. Question is how we get them there. Thank you very much, Spider Marks, for being here. Lawrence, Korb,
thank you.
Appreciate your time. Coming